Hi, and welcome to Zindi's session on demystifying AI in finance. Thank you so much for being here with us today. My name is Celina Lee, and I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO at Zindi. I'm based in South Africa, and just by way of introduction, uh, Zindi is the largest data science platform on the continent in Africa. We have about 70,000 data scientists and AI practitioners that are on the platform, building up skills, solving real world problems, and just essentially, I guess, building the entire ecosystem on the African continent. Today, I'm joined by a really amazing panel of partners of Zindi, participants on the Zindi platform, and we are really excited to share some of the insights from our panel and some of the experiences from our panel in terms of the role that data science and AI has in really unlocking new value in financial services. So with that, maybe we can do a round of quick introductions. So starting with Thuso, if you can just introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Thuso. I'm currently a data scientist and data engineer at Zedge, and I'm located in South Africa right now, originally from the US, and I've been doing data science for the last about 7 years, and have worked in financial inclusion companies, creating credit score models, and kind of the data pipelines around that as well. So that's me.
Cool, thank you, and welcome, Thivesh.
Thanks, Celina. My name is Thuso. I'm a data scientist based at Rand Merchant Bank, which is part of the First Rand Group in South Africa. My background's been as a data scientist in banking and in consulting, and I spent some time early on in my career working side by side with Zindi. Yeah, and that's it. That's it from my side.
Cool, thank you. And Stella.
Thank you. My name is Stella Kimani. I'm a data scientist and I work at PwC. So I like to use my skills to solve important problems in the country and generally in Africa. I'm also a competitor at Zindi, so I get to solve important problems as well. Thank you.
And Stella is currently sitting at number 2 on on the platform. So Stella is really one of the leaders, and especially as a woman in data science, really a leader in this field. So thank you so much for being here, all of you. We are really excited to have this discussion from all of these different perspectives. So maybe starting with Thuso, you've been a friend of Zindi for a long time. You've helped us run a number of the competitions that we run on the platform, and especially because of your background in fintechs and financial inclusion, I think you have some interesting perspectives. So maybe you can tell us a bit about we've run one competition specifically for a company that you were working for.
So at the time, I was working for this startup called Crowdsourcing, and it was like an early seed startup company, and there's only one data scientist, which was me at the company. So I was busy setting up the pipelines and the reporting and all the other stuff, and we had a need to kind of classify bank statements. And CredRails is primarily trying to help other financial service providers, have good data and reconcile their transactions and stuff like that in their financial statements. So we wanted to create an automatic categorization, categorization model, so that our partners could use that data to create better scorecards for people living in Kenya, and it's primarily mobile money and things like that. So I didn't quite have enough time to really spend building a model, so I did a kind of a quick POC, but the results I was getting were really bad, and so we reached out to Zindi to see if they could help us out, and we were able to find a data set that was very, very similar to our own. It wasn't quite from Kenya, but it was still pretty close. And we let I think it was we had like a weekend over where the competition was launched over, and we kind of hosted it and set it up, and that was really nice. And I think about 200 people ended up acting in it. And so for over three days of work, we had 200 people. So it turned out to be like 230 days worth of like effort put into the model. And we were able to get the top 3 responses from that and see exactly how they did stuff to improve the model. And a lot of the like feature creation and the model production stuff they had done were applicable to our own data. So we were able to kind of bootstrap our model from a lot of the things that worked really well in the competition to our own model, and use that to produce a model in-house that performed much better than my attempts in the beginning. So it was very successful.
And that's very cool, and it's saying a lot because you are an experienced data scientist, and it's very cool to hear that even then it's like having this crowd still injects like new things that maybe you weren't able to do on your own, like sitting by yourself in an office, what about, so just to repeat, like the problem exactly was that the bank statements were hard to process, or there was a lot of noise in the bank statements, right?
They're primarily Kenyan and Nigerian bank statements. So the English used in those was very transactional, and like it wasn't always very clear on what was happening because it's mixed in with other languages that are spoken locally. So a lot of like the classic models don't have embedding layers for different dialects, especially in Africa. So we were really struggling to get an off-the-shelf model that worked like that. But a lot of the processing stuff that the competition did ended up working really well. Like people use really fancy techniques and very simple ones even that performed way better. And these were ideas I hadn't thought of that worked really well.
Wow, that's very cool. That's super cool. Nice. Okay, so then I'm going to move on to Thirveshan. You also have been hosting a competition, actually our biggest competition that we've had on Zindi to date, that's still open right now, I believe. So yeah, maybe you can tell us a bit about the RMB challenge.
Sure, thanks, Celina. So I'll set the scene a little bit. So RMB, or Rand Merchant Bank, is part of the corporate and investment arm of FirstRand. So we're very interested in terms of where the economy is moving in order to best service our clients and get them up to speed with where things are at, investment decisions. And that's where we were kind of playing with this idea of nowcasting the economy. And there's some models that we've kind of developed internally, like looking at nowcasting GDP. But we thought that it would be a great opportunity to take CI, which is the Consumer Price Index and a proxy for inflation, and kind of put that on as a Zindi competition. And I think what we were looking for from the competition were a few things. I think naturally there's the actual model, but I think there was a real emphasis from our side on doing things a bit differently, looking at alternative data sources, different methods. And I think we also wanted to use Zindi, and I think we have to build a stronger relationship with tech candidates and graduates. So before the competition launched, we went to a few South African universities, and we got to know some of the data scientists that were coming through, and how they think about the financial services industries, fresh ideas and approaches. And I think you mentioned that it's the biggest competition. It's also probably the longest competition, because we ran it over 5 kind of monthly challenges, and now we're into the kind of final phase. And I think what we've noticed over this journey has just been it's been a great response from all the participants, but we've also managed to see the growth in some of the candidates from the start of the competition onwards. So I think it's helped us develop these relationships with South African students at a younger age that we will want to recruit. And we've also managed to, I think, give them an idea of what what an on-the-ground, real-world kind of problem is. So there's been learnings on both sides. I think we interviewed some of the candidates, and they were really excited to get up to speed with some of these problems where you don't have as much data, and you also have to think about different approaches. So what's been really refreshing from our side is actually seeing these approaches evolve over time. seeing alternative data sources that, we might never have tried, things like your pollution data and, engineering features that looks at the difference between the South African economy and maybe some other global indices. I think the way that the CPI is structured is you obviously have very different sub indices. So people have got really creative in terms of now casting food inflation versus another category like maybe housing. So I think we're still obviously in that final stage for the competition ending and looking at the final models. But checking in frequently through the competition, it's already been very insightful for us. And I think everyone around us that from an R&D perspective that was involved in the competition has also spoken out about just understanding data science and tech candidates better. And I think no doubt we will work with Zindi in future just to try and bed down our recruitment processes in this industry. But we look forward to the final models and embedding that into our investment decision-making process.
Very cool. Yeah, it's been a real pleasure working with you, Thuveshan, on this project. I think what you mentioned, as well as Thuso mentioned, is that a part of the benefit of using these competitions is being able to get this injection of new ideas and new approaches and new ways to think about the problem, and even down to like different alternative data sets. And yeah, so I think now would be a good time to turn it also over to Stella as a competitor on the Zindi platform. Maybe you can give me some background on like how long you've been on Zindi, how you found the experience, what types of competitions, or what has been your experience like being a competitor on the Zindi platform. Thanks.
Thanks, Celina. So the Zindi platform is a good platform that has really helped me hone my skills. So I got in Zindi about 3 years ago, and it's not been an easy ride. There are really challenges that are really test your skills, and not just across Africa, but also beyond. So I found myself being able to learn and gain practical exposure to real problems in Kenya, Uganda, across Africa. So it's been quite invaluable for me, if I can say, because having to grow your skills and at the same time helping a whole continent is something that really builds me as an individual.
And what can you give us some examples of like maybe some of your favorite competitions, or maybe even any that you entered that relate to financial services?
Yes. So there was one, the very initial one that I did as a learner. It was helping banks learn who has a bank account or not. And it was about financial inclusion, which remains to be a huge obstacle in economic and human development in Africa. So it was fairly well explained in the platform. I think Zindi even went above and beyond to help you have a small test model that had been made by a data scientist there. So I felt like such a competition can provide the indication of the state of financial inclusion in a country, then providing insights to banks that can be used to help in financial security. So there was also another one from Solago that helped revolutionize how solar payments were being made for customers. So for them, it would help them in their customer acquisition and also help in credit decision making. So such kind of huge competitions are really beneficial in Africa.
Yeah, I mean, and just to kind of summarize, like, I mean, what I was just thinking about right now is hearing from each three of you the kind of the diversity or the variety of types of challenges in the financial sector that actually can be solved or advanced through the use of data science and AI is quite large. I mean, Thuso's talking about almost more like natural language processing to be able to make the banking system more efficient, or the decision making and the processing of bank statements more efficient. Deveshan's talking about even like macroeconomic indicators and using data science and machine learning to more accurately predict inflation rates in real time. Stella, you talked a bit about predicting human behavior and who's going to have a bank account or not, as well as like predicting who's going to pay or not pay. Yeah, I think it's a really exciting like variety of examples that you give. I think on the competition side, I'd just like to ask Thuso and Deveshan as well a bit more about your experience, and maybe kind of what were some of the challenges and maybe key takeaways or takeaways from the experience of hosting a competition on Zindi. And you can be honest about the challenges, maybe some of the things that you had to like overcome as well.
Yeah, I think the hardest part was working in an industry where the data is kind of proprietary. So the data that we wanted to use wasn't our data. We're getting it from third parties. So being able to give that out to a community wasn't possible. But the nice thing is there are lots of like open data sets that are very adjacent to us, and even trying to do some kind of encryption on the data to try to make it obfuscated so that we could share it with the community or the world basically helped us out a lot. And I think for us that was the hardest part, was actually sourcing the data and getting a data set that was close enough to our business model and also something that we could share, which is always a bit tricky when it's proprietary data that you're sharing.
Yeah, definitely true. Deveshan, at RMB, how did you tackle that problem, or were there other challenges?
Yes, so I think having a background with Zindi helped me quite a bit. I think from our side, so we knew about maybe some of the challenges we might encounter going into it. I think similar to what Thuso mentioned, was just about using internal data as much as it's valuable. To include that in the competition we'd have some compliance issues. So from our side, I think we made it completely publicly available data. And I think the other thing that we addressed before the competition started was for some of our real world problems where you have to develop approaches and you don't have this curated data set in front of you, it's probably not going to be a 2 or 3 week problem. And that's why we also structured it over a long enough period of time, because we also feel the longer the candidates sit with these problems and develop these approaches, the better the solution is on the other side. So I think we were aware of some of the challenges before we started, and we kind of brainstormed along with you, Celina, to find some kind of solutions there. But yeah, that's been our experience.
And I mean, I suppose it wasn't exactly a challenge, but something that was very different with the RMB competition was, I suppose it was a challenge in a way of trying to think about how you could get as close to now, like simulating like a nowcasting environment, which is why, as you said, the competition is going on for 5 months. So maybe you can explain a little bit about that innovation.
Sure. So I think because CPI is released monthly and it's something that's not more granular, like a daily indicator or a monthly indicator, we had to think about, how do we simulate this in this, or how do we have enough history to get the participants to kind of test and all of those things. And nowcasting is slightly different to maybe a non-nowcasting model, because it's about using kind of a data as close to the model as possible. So it could end up being data that's released the day of the actual month end or whatever the case is. So we had to be quite clever about how we ran the competition with the monthly challenges. An example is we didn't close it at midnight on the month end. We kind of held it open for one more day, just because we understood the whole thing of consolidating data that's required for nowcasting. Some indicator might only be available at 11 p.m. and to give the candidates enough time to kind of process that. So yeah, I think that was one of the kind of the obstacles to get past. I think something else is when you're kind of when you've got a traditional machine learning problem and you've got a leaderboard that's public and private, or it's a lot easier to split. From our side, we wanted to give our candidates a proxy for what the actual now cost is going to be, without it, being to the point where we're taking the work away from them. So I think it was, the first month was obviously challenging for all involved, but I think it was impressive how quickly the Zindi candidates caught on to how this is going to be run, and that the actual leaderboard is just a proxy, but not necessarily, if you place highly with your predictions, it doesn't necessarily mean that when the actual CPI numbers come out, that's going to resonate as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the real reality of data science in the wild, right? Yeah, I thought that was a really innovative way, and it's been super engaging. I mean, I don't know, I don't have the updated numbers on how many people are working on this challenge, but you have hundreds of people just throwing their hat in the ring and learning as they go as well over the course of these last 5 months. So it's been incredible. And then just one last thing, Theveshan, is you mentioned about recruitment. I mean, it's also been a bit of another angle or another thing that RMB is looking to get out of running these competitions as well, right?
Yeah, so I think as I mentioned in the kind of intro, we're definitely looking at how we build a relationship with tech candidates, and being an investment bank, we've very often played in the accounting and finance pool, so it's about getting to know the candidates. And also, I think where Zindi helps us is over and above something like an interview process, building in a history of not just candidates and how they perform, but how they evolve. Because I think what's so important in the whole tech and data industry is continuous improvement. So even in this competition, we're also looking at candidates that were maybe new to data science, and early on we're feeling out the competition, and then as it's gone on, they've become stronger and better. So I think there's many things about the Zindi platform that really I think is going to aid our recruiting process going forward.
That's incredible. Yeah, continuous improvement, which is kind of the idea with Zindi, is that someone can join and spend years actually on the platform and continue to, learn and like just be exposed to all types of new things. So I'm on the flip side, I'm curious, Stella, from your experience as a data scientist and kind of like actually all of you are making your way in this space. I mean, what do you see as kind of the biggest challenges and maybe opportunities, for a young data scientist in Africa pursuing, this space? I mean, it's kind of a career path, but basically like to improve in their abilities in data science and AI.
Okay, so some of the emerging opportunities I've seen or challenges for there's something I read about Kenya stock market becoming the worst performing in the world. So it is quite alarming, but for me, I see it as potential. So something that I would even want to see from Zindi would be like, for example, Zindi teaming up with the banking sector and helping them. So as competitors, we can sort of do a machine learning model that analyzes spending habits of customers. Then the bank takes it and integrates it with non-banking apps like maybe after after the model that analyzes the spending habits of a customer, they can then link it maybe to a nearby coffee shop, a nearby supermarket, and then they both can sort of harness that kind of capability. There's another one for using facial recognition for frictionless payments. So also maybe use analytics-backed personalized ads. For example, if I, as a customer, I'm really big on going to the gym, Zindi can partner with a local insurance facility. Then they can help me they can offer me some free, let's say 2% of discounts from health insurance. Maybe an app that does money management and saving solution for clients. Another one would be savings and investment recommendation, an app that does that. So at the end of the day, if I'm a customer, I can get integrated portfolio view from all my actions, and maybe even an app that can remind me to pay bills. So I see as as a data scientist, there's a lot of potential, especially for the banking sector and for Zindi too, because Africa is still growing.
Yeah, I like how you frame it as the challenges are actually opportunities. So maybe I'll just hand it over. I mean, you've basically kind of answered what my last question was going to be, is just kind of, what are the exciting spaces, or, what are you excited about in terms of AI in Africa, and the financial services. So maybe I'll turn it over to Thuso and then Theveshan to answer as well. I mean, is there, what are the things that you're thinking about, that you're excited about in terms of AI, particularly in Africa and maybe in the financial services sector?
For me, it's also helping the merchants out. So the merchants on the other side of the payments, making sure that they're, if there's any indications that the business isn't healthy or anything like that, like having models that can, figure that out, and then with these new large language models that are coming out, be able to produce like plans for them to make the business healthy, so that they're able to do that, and then speak the encouragement to them in a local language or whatever else. So those things are very excited for me, and mostly what I've been thinking about.
Yeah, no, very cool. Finally, the large language models came up in this discussion. Yeah, Theveshan, what are you excited about?
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard to talk about the future without mentioning large language models. I think from my side, there's a few things or a few use cases that I think could be quite valuable. But I think large language models just in general, in terms of how they feature, I think it might be very helpful for South African context in general, with us having so many different languages, the whole switching between languages and that sort of thing. And I think leading into financial advice, financial inclusion. I think also rests on financial advice and extending ourselves beyond just servicing our clients, but perhaps packaging together solutions through these large language models that involve personalized advice, getting to people that we wouldn't normally have the reach to target. I think as Thuso mentioned, the whole kind of for us, or the first rank group, there's a big target on the unseen or township economy, and how to help kind of retailers, merchants, vendors, and actual customers there. So I know there's some plans and ideas in place there, and about how to kind of gather the data. But I think from our space, I think everyone's kind of caught up in the whole large language model rush, and I think we're still waiting for the storm to kind of settle down. But I'm sure there's going to be plenty of use cases on the back of it.
Yeah, sure. And especially, and you mentioned like for local African languages, there's still some space and opportunities there. I don't know, Stella, if you want to like weigh in one last time on something like, what you're excited about, although you gave some really great examples already. You're on mute.
Okay, sorry. I think mine is more of what it can do for manufacturing, and also in things like cloud computing, which can enable high scalability, resilience of services and platforms through enablement of infrastructure building. So I'm excited to see the automation that comes from the whole AI platform, then that can also be able to bring us a better talent management.
Yes. I mean, I guess what, I'm excited about also is just that there's so many opportunities in so many different sectors. So like you said, even, we're talking about financial services, but also manufacturing, also, any type of customer or retail sectors. It's the possibilities are just, wide open at the moment. So just to wrap it up, it's been really great to hear from all three of you. I really appreciate that, you took the time to share your experience and your insights from working with Zindi from different perspectives. I think what we've highlighted and heard from you is that there's so many different applications of data science and AI, from very like relatively traditional problems like forecasting inflation to then, generative AI and how that might revolutionize the way that people interact, and or even not even in terms of languages, but also even bundling services and looking at service delivery in a different way. Also, what we heard from you guys a lot about is the experience with the competitions from both angles, where where I'm so excited about all the competitions that we've been running. We've run over 300 of them, and every month we're coming out with new ones, and it's always really exciting to see like what types of new approaches or perspectives people are coming with. People have backgrounds in all different fields, and so it's really interesting to see what things people come up with, people like Stella come up with. And yeah, it's really great to hear from you, Stella, about the experience of building real world experience and just being exposed to different types of things as a data scientist, building up your career. Yeah, so with that, I'd like to thank you guys so much for joining us today, and yeah, we're really excited to see what the future holds. Thank you.